Hi guys, it's Miss Haridas again at the Study Hive, and today we are going to be talking about study techniques. Now, before I start talking about it, just to give some people time to join, you might just want to know who I am a little bit more. Hi, Kate. It's nice to see you again. My name is Miss Haridas, and I have been teaching science for the last 8 years. I did my degree in biology, I got my teacher's qualification, and then I went to teach in schools. I taught in grammar schools, I taught in comprehensive schools, and I currently teach in an all-girls independent school. And what I noticed is that the teaching that we give in our school, I would love for all students to be able to access this excellent education. Hence why I set up this study hive with my colleague. And we are giving free sessions for everyone. We go live every Thursday at 1 p.m. for you to learn content and learn effective ways to learn, to boost your grades, to get the most successful grade that you can get. A little bit more about me. I love traveling. I also love dancing, and I have a dual profession. So I used to play for QPR ladies in football because I was very much a tomboy growing up and still am. And so I used to do that. And then at the same time, I would also teach science. So that's a little bit about me. And we'll go in to this lesson. Now, this lesson is probably going to be one of the most important lessons you will take in your student life because it's something that I definitely didn't have when I was a student. I'm just going to take you there. Bear with me 1 second. Right, so how to study effectively. Now, before I go into the content and the strategies, I know that teachers are always saying revise, revise, revise. It's probably the most annoying thing that you hear, but it becomes less annoying when you understand the science behind the word revise. So let's take a look into your brain. Oh wow, from South Africa. That's amazing. It's awesome that you've come and joined, Kate, from South Africa. Thumbs up. So let's take a look into your brain. Now, the brain is made up of lots of neurons. So neurons that connect together. When you learn something, an electrical impulse goes through these neurons and they produce and they strengthen that pathway, that electrical pathway. Now, your body, if you never learn that thing again, your body thinks, okay, that wasn't really important. So no more electrical impulses go down that specific pathway and you tend to forget. Now, if you go over something again 2 times or 3 times, an electrical impulse will again get fired down that specific pathway and your body starts to think, oh, maybe this might be useful to you. So it starts storing this information from its short-term memory into its long-term memory. Now, I'll give you an example. If I say to you, let's take Kate as an example. Kate, if I say to you, I want you to say the alphabet to me from A to Z, all 26 letters. And you're going to be like, oh, that's easy, Miss Haridas. It's A, B, C, D, E, and so on. Now, if I say to you, I'm going to give you 26 individual numbers. I'm going to say 5, 6, 14, 2, 1, 3, 5, 7, and so on. And now I want you to repeat those 26 numbers back to me. And you're going to feel a little bit stressed, not as confident as when you said the alphabet. Can you still hear me, guys? Okay, so the point was when you say those numbers, you're not going to be as confident. Why? Why is the alphabet so much easier than me telling you to say 26 different numbers? Well, the point is because when you were a child, you didn't realize that you repeatedly said the alphabet until a neuronal pathway became so strong that it's easy. Whereas now when I ask you for 26 numbers, your brain is taking so much information, those electrical impulses haven't passed through those pathways. So that's what, when a teacher says revise, that's essentially what is happening. Your brain is using its different aspects to create pathways and things become easier because you keep going through something. So the success to doing well is to consistently go through something. That doesn't mean spending lots of time doing it. 10 minutes before you go to sleep, reread something, watch a YouTube video, and your brain is building those pathways. So that's the science behind revising. Now, you can see here on my PowerPoint, It says, did you know you only use 5% of your brain? True or false? That's an absolute myth. You don't just use 5% of your brain. In fact, you use different aspects of your brain all the time. So therefore, the strategy that you use to learn and revise has to reflect that. So let's have a look. See if this applies to you. Too many students, and now this is all coming from actual journals, so that all these things I'm talking about, this has been researched through scientific journals, and then I'm just relaying it to you so that you don't have to do all the research. So too often, students imagine that long hours of studying are the best path to being a model straight A student. Yet evidence shows that highly effective students actually spend less time studying than their peers do. They just study more effectively. Now, isn't that just a kick in the teeth if you were to find out that your friend spends less hours than you do but gets better grades? How does that make sense? So let's stop that from happening. So the most popular techniques proven to be the least effective, again, through science, research shows that things like taking notes, highlighting, reading and rereading texts isn't actually that effective. Now put your hands up if that applies to you, because I can put my hand up and tell you that my whole of my high school life and some of my university life, that is what I did. I felt like I would write notes and notes and notes, and I felt like I was putting so much effort into my work, and I felt really good about myself, and I felt like I understood it, but there was no processing happening. It was visual. I was taking information and rewriting it, and it made me feel good, but I wasn't making my brain work. So before I tell you the golden point of this lesson, which is the strategies that you will take from this lesson, I'm going to ask you, can we truly be successful in multitasking? Now, we live in a world where technology is huge and beautiful. I wouldn't be able to give this lesson to you if it wasn't for technology, but it's also a distraction. So as a scientist myself, I like to simplify everything and make things into equations. So I've got an equation here for you. It says the work accomplished equals the intensity of focus and the time spent. Now I'm going to take an example. Let's take somebody who's joined the group. Let's take Jamelia. So Jamelia, hi Jamelia. Now if we look at this example, I'm going to say Jamelia today, she spent 3 hours. So on a rate of 0 to 10 as your intensity, she put 3 as her intensity, which means she wasn't very focused, 10 being the highest. She wasn't very focused because she had her phone there, her Instagram was going off, Facebook was going off, there was music in the background, sometimes she was procrastinating. So intensity of her focus was about 3 out of 10. But she was really determined to work hard, and she spent 3 hours of her time working. So how much work did she accomplish? Let's put that into a value. 3 times 3 is 9. So I'm going to put J for Jamelia. Now let's take somebody else. Sana, for example. Sana, you've just joined. Hi, Sana. Sana decided today her intensity of focus, she's going to put a phone in the drawers. The music is going to be switched off, and she's going to spend 1 full hour. So that's the time here, 1 full hour of work, but her focus is completely on what she's doing. So let's say that her focus was an absolute 10, right at the top of that. So you would find that her work accomplished is 10. Now, what can you see about the difference in this equation? Let's put Sana there. Sana only did 1 hour's worth of work, but because she was focused and put her distractions away, she got the best out of her outcome. Whereas Jamelia had done 3 hours of work, so she worked longer, but her focus was distracted, and therefore she only got a 9. So for her to do 3 hours, she only got a 9. So the point here is the importance of making sure that whatever strategy that you're doing, put everything into it and be focused, because you can then use the next 2 hours to socialize, read, play music, whatever it is that you like, but you're going to get more out of what you're doing. Right, so here we go. Now, the things that you really want to know is passive learning versus active learning. So what I referred to before, when I say passive learning Passive learning is when you are just visually looking at something and you are rewriting it. That's passive learning. I'm not using different aspects of my brain. I'm not making my brain process things. Whereas active learning is when I'm forcing my brain to actually do some thinking, manipulate things, evaluate things, and try to work, kind of solve problem solving, for example. They're all processes that I'm forcing my different aspects of my brain to work. So the key to success, guys, the key to success is engage in as much active learning. Now I'm going to show you strategies of what active learning is so that you can actually put it into practice, but always question, is your strategy, is your revision technique a form of active learning? That is the key to success to your exams. So here's the golden page. What are the most effective learning strategies? Now, I'm going to give you 6. There are a few more, but the 6 ones that are really going to benefit you. The number one, and this again comes from science, this is proven, this is through journal research, and clinical psychologists as well. They've looked into this. The number one strategy for the most effective type of learning is practice exam questions. So what I'm saying is take out that middle part of rewriting your notes. Don't spend time doing that. Listen to YouTube videos, listen to your teacher, read the textbook of what's going on. Don't rewrite things. Take that, all of that hours of work, take that away and go straight into your past paper exams. Because through those questions are designed to make you think. Now, when I talk about my 8 years of experience in teaching biology or teaching science effectively, we have 3 skills in all your GCSE and A-level exam papers, and it's the same. Factual recall. Can you learn a definition and recall that? The second one is application. Can you take this information and apply it to an unseen scenario? And the third one we look at, the third skill that we look at in GCSE and A-levels is how good are you at evaluating? Can you look at data? Can you understand that data? Can you manipulate that data? Those are the 3 skills that you look at. So if you were to rewrite your notes, for example, which is a form of passive learning, you would get the 1 out of 3. You would get 33% essentially out of the 3 skill areas. Whereas if you change your technique and you just stopped writing, I know that sounds daunting because you're rewiring your habits now, and you went straight into things like practice papers, for example, or teaching somebody else, those are active learning processes. That then looks at your second and third skill because you're making your brain work. That is looking at your application skills, and that is looking at your evaluative skills. So that's really where you want to focus your area in revision. So firstly, I would say get as many practice exam questions. Do not rewrite your notes. The second thing that's really important is something called spaced learning. So it's way more effective to do little 45-minute break sessions or even 1-hour sessions of learning than doing a 6-block session of learning photosynthesis, for example, because your brain is taking all this new information and it needs time to process that. So you're more effective in having short and consistent sessions rather than one long, heavy session. It's the same as going to the gym. I'm going to be more effective, my body's going to be more effective if I do a gym session every Monday, Wednesday and Friday, because I have time for my body to recover so that I could do it at my maximum capacity the next time. But if I say, oh, today I really want to get into shape and feel fit, I'm going to do 6 hours at the gym, my body's going to be broken. My muscles are going to tear. It's not going to be very effective to recover. I might probably be out for a long time after that because my body's still recovering. So in the same way, that's like studying. Be consistent, have regular breaks, and make sure that they're small bursts so that your brain has the capacity to take the most in. That's spaced learning. Again, science proven through methods and journals. Have a look at that. And I will put all of these journals up on my YouTube link so you can have a look at them and refer if you're interested to research more. The other thing is combine words and visuals. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen magicians who are so good at memorizing. And what they do is they take their cards and they put each card down and they remember the whole pack just by heart by looking at it once. How do they do that? Are they just genetically smarter than us, or how do they remember all these cards? And it's a form of memory association. So what they do visually is when they take their cards and they take the Queen of Hearts and then they take the Five of Spades, what they do is they visually in their head put these cards in a room that they're familiar with. So the Queen of Hearts might be in a vase next to my window because I'm visualizing my bedroom and I know my bedroom really well. The Five of Spades I may put next to on my desk lying down, and I keep doing that with all the cards. But what I'm doing, the skill I'm doing, or the tactic I'm doing, is I'm associating that card with something I know very well. So every time I remember of the vase, I think, oh yeah, that's where the Queen of Spades was sitting. And I'm associating, this is memory association, and it's a really brilliant technique for studying. So when you're writing words on a page and your teacher always tells you off, don't doodle, don't doodle. Well, if you doodle little animations that are relevant or help you trigger a word that you put onto that piece of paper, that is actually very effective for you, and it's a form of memory association. So that is combining words with visuals. The next one is verbal elaboration, so explaining things. Now, this might sound really crazy, but talking to your teddy, if you have teddies, or talking to a parent or a sibling is, again, another really useful tactic because they might not be listening. My teddy, I mean, I don't know if I own a teddy, but they're not going to be listening to what I'm saying. But what I'm doing is when I go back to what I talked about at the beginning of this lesson about our neuronal connections, I'm forcing myself to think and put things together, put information together and process it and talk it through. And at the point when I don't recognize, I can't really talk about something confidently, that highlights to me that I don't understand something. So I need to go back to my books to understand it. So talking to a teddy, don't worry if your sibling or your mom or your dad walks into your room and she's like, my daughter's gone crazy or my son's gone crazy. You're not. It's actually a really highly effective technique to process things and strengthen those neuronal pathways. I've got the last two, which is concrete examples. So sometimes in biology, things are very abstract. What I mean by abstract is it's something that you can't really relate to. Like if I say the nucleus of a cell, you can't really relate to the nucleus of the cell. You can't really see it. So when you're talking about these things, sometimes it's good to give examples. So an example would be because the nucleus of the cell controls what the cell does, it's a little bit like the boss, the manager, the boss of a company. So the CEO, for example. So then I might think, okay, previously Steve Jobs was the CEO of Apple and Steve Jobs is like the nucleus. So I'm giving myself an example. That makes, every time now I think of Steve Jobs, and again, this is also memory association, I'm thinking, oh, he's like the boss, just like my nucleus. Now, I would never write, when I'm writing about the nucleus, that the nucleus is the boss or the CEO. I would still say it controls different parts of the cell, but it helps me remember what the nucleus does. So concrete examples is a really effective way to understand something. And the last thing is something called interleaving. So interleaving is just when you switch up your topics. So if I've learnt 45 minutes of diffusion and I want to do so, I want to learn, I want to kind of still go through biology, but I want to change my topics. Maybe I might switch to have a 10-minute break and then switch to photosynthesis, and then again 10-minute break, and then maybe I'll go into a history lesson. So what I'm doing is I'm switching up my topics, and it's kind of shocking my brain to be like, okay, it's switched now. Rewire how you're thinking. The way I think about history has to be very different to the way I do science or the way I do maths. So again, that's really effective strategies. So just to summarize, some really effective strategies, and I really hope you take these on because they're really going to change the way you study. I know too many people, including myself, who would write notes and notes and notes and think I was doing putting on a lot of effort, a lot of my time, and really thought that I felt good about myself, but actually I wasn't making my brain think, and therefore my strategy wasn't effective to the person next to me who was just doing past papers, for example, constantly and understanding through past papers and YouTube videos, and they would get their A stars very quickly without putting as much work in. So summary, active learning is a key thing. Whatever you're doing, make sure it's active so your brain is actually forced to think. You're not visually just copying things out. Number one strategy of all time is practice exam questions. So I would always say any topic you do, take out those exam questions and go through them. I'll have some YouTube videos to really show you how to break down answering exam questions to help you soon. And I'll do some live sessions on that if you want. Teaching a teddy, because it's forcing you to process an idea and talk about it. That's why when I'm teaching something, I'm constantly going over a topic. So the next year and the next year, I find it easier and easier to teach because I've gone over it so many times. Just like the example when I told you about going through the alphabet. And Cornell notes, so I haven't mentioned this one. This is a really interesting one. I definitely say go and research this if you haven't come across it. But it's just a way of formatting your notes in essence, but you ask questions instead. So you ask a number of questions and then you put the answer. And actually, that's not note taking because there's a form of active learning happening because you are thinking about what the question is and you don't have anything in front of you to answer. You're just writing what you think. So Cornell notes, if that's something you haven't been exposed to, definitely have a look at it. And the last thing, for those of you who love taking notes and you really don't want to come away from that, well, if that's something you want to do, close your book and take the notes because that's a whole different ball game. You've changed passive learning of taking information from a book and rewriting it into active learning because you've read something and you've closed the book and now you're checking your understanding. So you're making different aspects of your brain work and you're writing notes or memory maps or flow diagrams to process your understanding of what you've read. So, and then quizzes as well, just to check your understanding is always fun. So they're just really, really useful examples of active learning. Remember, practice exam questions is number one, and that is research proven. I will put all the journals underneath my YouTube link. If you have any questions or you want me to do any specific topics, feel free to just let me know, send me a message, and I'll definitely look into that. And my YouTube channel is the Study Hive. So I work with my colleague, there's two of us. We own the Study Hive. And if you really like what you see, we'd massively appreciate if you just subscribe to us. It's absolutely free and it just supports us. So we know that what we're offering you is something that you are learning from and enjoy, and you feel really confident and you are going to get your top grades from this. So I hope you really enjoyed that. Thank you for joining me. I'm Miss Haridas. This is the Study Hive, and I will see you next Thursday at 1 p.m. Bye.